The metal doors of the debriefing chamber hissed shut behind Commander Crixtal. His forearms trembled slightly as he looked around the stark white room. 3 years had passed since the Battle of Kepler 442b, but the memories still haunted his dreams every night. Across from him sat 5 beings from different worlds, each representing the major powers of the Galactic Coalition. High Counselor Vexara from Andromeda Prime leaned forward, her silver eyes studying him carefully. To her left, General Thokmar from the warrior clans tapped his claws impatiently on the metal table. The other council members watched silently, waiting for answers that might save their civilizations. Crixtal had been one of only 7 survivors from that terrible day. For 3 years he had refused to speak about what happened. The other survivors had either gone mad or taken their own lives. He was the last one who could tell the truth about humanity's first real battle in space. Commander Crixtal, High Counselor Vexara began, her voice echoing in the chamber. You commanded the 3rd battle group during the Kepler 442b incident. 200 of our best ships were lost that day. We need to understand what happened. The Zephyrian commander's blue skin had turned pale. His large dark eyes darted around the room as if looking for an escape. You do not understand, he whispered. None of you understand what we faced out there. General Thokmar slammed his fist on the table. We faced humans. Primitive beings who had barely left their home system. How could they destroy an entire coalition fleet? Crixtal laughed, but there was no humor in it. The sound was broken, filled with pain and fear. Primitive? You still think they are primitive? That is why we lost. That is why we will all lose if we do not learn the truth. The hologram projector in the center of the room flickered to life. The image of a human appeared, wearing a dark blue uniform with silver markings. Admiral Jake Morrison looked calm and confident. Nothing like the terrified alien sitting across from him. Commander Crixtal, Admiral Morrison said in perfect galactic standard, I am here to ensure that your testimony is accurate. My government wants the coalition to understand exactly what happened that day. Another hologram appeared beside the Admiral. A human female with short brown hair and intelligent green eyes smiled softly at the alien commander. I am Dr. Lisa Carter, she said. I specialize in helping survivors of traumatic events. If you need to stop at any time, please let me know. Crixtal stared at the 2 humans. Even as holograms, they made him nervous. There was something in their eyes that the coalition members did not see. A coldness, a calculating intelligence that seemed to measure everything around them. 3 years ago, Crixtal began slowly, we thought we knew everything about warfare. The coalition had fought wars for thousands of years. We had rules. We had honor. We had traditions that went back to the beginning of space travel. He paused, looking at each council member. We thought humans were like us. We thought they would fight like us. We were wrong about everything. High Counselor Vexara made notes on her data pad. Tell us about first contact. How did the coalition initially assess human military capabilities? Crixtal's expression grew distant. When we first met humans 6 months before the battle, they seemed so weak. Their ships were slow and ugly. Their weapons used chemical explosives instead of energy beams. Their soldiers were small and fragile compared to most species. He gestured to the hologram of Admiral Morrison. This one came to our diplomatic meetings with a big smile. He shook hands with everyone. He asked questions about our culture, our history, our technology. He seemed so friendly and curious. And you believed this was genuine? General Thokmar asked. Of course we did. Crixtal's voice rose. Every species we had ever met acted the same way when they joined the coalition. They were grateful for our protection. They wanted to learn from us. They accepted their place in the galaxy. Dr. Carter's hologram leaned forward slightly. But humans were different? Crixtal nodded slowly. We offered them protected status. They would give us resources from their system, and we would protect them from threats. It was a good deal. Most species jump at the chance, and humans accepted? Vexara asked. Oh yes, Crixtal said bitterly. They accepted immediately. Captain Ron Hayes signed every document we gave him. Ambassador Kate Williams thanked us over and over. They said they were honored to join the coalition family. The alien commander stood up and began pacing around the small chamber. His forearms moved nervously as he spoke. We held celebration dinners. We gave them tours of our ships. We showed them our weapons, our defenses, our tactical systems. We wanted them to see how powerful their new protectors were. That sounds normal, General Thokmar said. Why do you say they were different? Crixtal stopped pacing and stared at the warrior clan general. Because they were not tourists. They were soldiers. Every human diplomat was a military expert. Every smile was a mask. Every question was intelligence gathering. The room fell silent. The council members looked at each other with growing concern. Admiral Morrison's hologram spoke up. Commander Crixtal is correct. Every member of our diplomatic team had military training. Captain Hayes was a naval strategist. Ambassador Williams was a former intelligence officer. We sent our best minds to learn everything we could about coalition military doctrine. But why? Vexara asked. You had agreed to our protection. Why would you need to study our military capabilities? Dr. Carter answered this time. Because humans do not like being dependent on others for their survival. We prefer to understand potential threats even from allies. Crixtal laughed again, the same broken sound as before. Threats? You were not studying us as allies. You were studying us as enemies. From the very first meeting, you were planning for war. That is not true, Admiral Morrison said calmly. We were preparing for the possibility of conflict. There is a difference. No, Crixtal shook his head. There is no difference. Not for humans. You see everything as a potential threat, every relationship as a potential conflict, every friend as a future enemy. The alien commander sat back down, his shoulders slumped in defeat. For 6 months, we thought we had found a new species to protect and guide. Instead, we had invited predators into our home. We had shown them our weaknesses and taught them our strengths. High Counselor Vexara looked troubled. What happened when the conflict began? Crixtal closed his eyes. That is when we learned what humans really are. That is when we discovered that everything we thought we knew about warfare was wrong. The chamber fell silent again, waiting for him to continue with the rest of his terrible story. Crixtal took a deep breath and continued his testimony. His voice became steadier as he remembered the early days, before everything went wrong. 6 months before the battle, he said, I was serving on the coalition diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge. We had just detected faster-than-light signals coming from a small yellow star system. The species there had finally developed FTL travel. High Counselor Vexara nodded. Standard first contact protocol? Yes, Crixtal replied. We sent peaceful greetings and requested a meeting. The humans responded within hours. They seemed excited to meet other intelligent life, very eager to learn about the galaxy. The alien commander gestured to Admiral Morrison's hologram. The first human ship that met us was tiny compared to our diplomatic vessel. It was called the UHS Explorer, commanded by Captain Ron Hayes. When he came aboard our ship, he looked around with wide eyes like a child seeing magic for the first time. General Thokmar leaned forward. What was your assessment of their military capabilities? Laughable, Crixtal said flatly. Their ship had chemical rockets for movement. Their weapons fired metal projectiles using explosive powder. Their armor was made of steel and ceramic. We had moved beyond such primitive technology thousands of years ago. He stood up and walked to the wall display, which showed images from the first meeting. Human faces smiled back at him, but now he saw something different in their expressions. Captain Hayes brought gifts, Crixtal continued. Art from their world, music, food samples. He also brought technical specifications for all their military equipment. He said he wanted to show us everything so we could better understand how to protect them. Dr. Carter's hologram tilted her head. And you believed he was being completely honest? Why would we not? Crixtal spread his forearms wide. Every species does this during first contact. They show us their capabilities so we can assess what level of protection they need. It is normal behavior. The display changed to show more images. Human diplomats shaking hands with various alien species. Humans touring coalition ships. Humans attending formal dinners and cultural exchanges. For 3 months, we hosted human representatives throughout coalition space, Crixtal said. Ambassador Kate Williams visited our military academies. She attended strategy seminars. She asked very intelligent questions about our combat doctrines and ship designs. What kind of questions? Vexara asked. Crixtal's expression darkened. She wanted to know about our communication systems, how we coordinate between ships during battle, what frequencies we use, how we encrypt our messages. She said she was fascinated by our advanced technology. And you told her? General Thokmar looked incredulous. Of course we told her. Crixtal's voice rose. She was our new ally. We were proud of our achievements. We wanted to impress her with our sophistication. Admiral Morrison's hologram spoke quietly. Ambassador Williams was one of our best intelligence analysts. Every question she asked was designed to gather specific military information. The alien commander sat down heavily. Yes, we know that now. But at the time she seemed like a curious diplomat interested in learning about galactic civilization. The wall display showed more scenes from the diplomatic exchanges, humans taking detailed notes, humans recording conversations, humans asking to see technical manuals and tactical procedures. They were so polite about it, Krikstal said bitterly, always asking permission, always thanking us for our time, always expressing how honored they were to learn from such advanced civilizations. Dr. Carter leaned forward. What specifically did they learn during these exchanges? Krikstal closed his eyes and recited from memory. Ship construction techniques, weapon frequencies and power outputs, shield harmonics and rotation patterns, communication protocols, battle formation strategies, supply line management, crew training methods, command structures. The council members looked at each other with growing alarm. Everything, Krikstal continued. They learned everything about how the coalition military operates. And we gave it to them willingly because we thought they were grateful new members who needed protection. High Counselor Vexara made more notes. When did you first suspect something was wrong? Not until the battle began, Krikstal admitted. But looking back, there were signs. Small things that seemed innocent at the time. What kind of signs? General Thokmar asked. Krikstal walked back to the display and touched a control. New images appeared, showing human technicians working on their ships. While the diplomats were learning about our military, human engineers were upgrading their technology. They said they wanted to improve their ships to better serve the coalition. We thought this showed proper dedication to their new role. The images showed human vessels being modified with new systems and weapons. They asked for samples of our materials. Krikstal continued. Our metals, our energy sources, our computer systems. They said they wanted to make their ships compatible with coalition standards. Admiral Morrison nodded. We needed to understand your technology so we could develop countermeasures. Countermeasures? Vexara looked confused. You were our allies. Why would you need countermeasures against us? Dr. Carter answered. Humans have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We always plan for the possibility that allies might become enemies. Krikstal laughed his bitter laugh again. You were never our allies. From the moment we met, you were studying us as future opponents. Every smile was fake. Every expression of gratitude was a lie. Not a lie, Admiral Morrison corrected. We were genuinely grateful for the information you provided. It helped us prepare for what we knew would eventually happen. What did you know would happen? General Thokmar demanded. Conflict, the human admiral replied simply. Humans have never been comfortable in subordinate positions. We knew that eventually the coalition would do something that would force us to fight for our independence. Krikstal nodded slowly. And that something was the mining incident on Kepler 442b. The wall display changed to show a distant star system. Several small planets orbited a red dwarf star. One planet showed signs of recent industrial activity. 3 months after the diplomatic exchanges ended, Krikstal explained, our long-range sensors detected unauthorized mining operations in the Kepler system. The humans had set up extraction facilities on the 4th planet without requesting permission from the coalition. Standard enforcement protocol? Vexara asked. Yes, send a fleet to demonstrate coalition authority. Destroy the illegal facilities. Capture some ships and crews to make an example. Show the new species that there are rules they must follow. General Thokmar grunted approval. Proper response to insubordination. That is what we thought, Krikstal said quietly. We assembled a fleet of 200 ships, our best vessels with experienced crews. It should have been a simple police action against a primitive species with only a few dozen ships. Admiral Morrison's expression remained calm. We had been expecting this response. We were ready for you. Krikstal stared at the human hologram. Ready? You had 12 ships against our 200. How could you possibly be ready? Because we had spent 6 months learning everything about how you fight, Dr. Carter replied. We knew exactly what you would do and exactly how to counter it. The alien commander's forearms began trembling again. Counter it? You did not just counter it, you destroyed us. You turned our own tactics against us and made us look like fools. He looked around at the council members, his dark eyes filled with remembered terror. That is when we learned the truth about humans. That is when we discovered that they are not like any species we had ever encountered. They do not just fight to win. They fight to make sure their enemies never want to fight them again. The chamber fell silent as everyone prepared to hear about the battle that had changed everything. Crixtal's hands shook as he activated the chamber's tactical display. A three-dimensional map of the Kepler 442 system appeared in the center of the room, showing the positions of ships and planets during the battle. I was commanding the third battle group. He began, his voice barely above a whisper. 40 ships under my direct control. We were part of the enforcement fleet sent to deal with the unauthorized human mining operation. The display showed red dots representing coalition ships arranged in standard formation. Small blue dots indicated human vessels clustered near the fourth planet. Fleet Admiral Nixoth was in overall command, Crixtal continued. He had fought in 17 major battles and never lost a single engagement. When he saw the human response, he actually laughed. High Counselor Vexara studied the tactical display. Only 12 human ships responded to your fleet of 200? 12 ships, Crixtal confirmed, led by Admiral Pete Davis aboard the UHS Defiance. When Admiral Nixoth saw them approaching, he opened a communication channel to taunt them. The alien commander touched a control, and the recorded voice of the dead coalition admiral filled the chamber. The translation came through clearly. Human vessels, you are outnumbered 17-1. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Admiral Morrison's hologram smiled slightly. I remember Admiral Davis's response to that message. Another voice recording began to play. This one was human, speaking in calm, measured tones. Coalition Fleet, this is Admiral Pete Davis. We appreciate your concern for our mining operation. However, we have decided to decline your kind offer of surrender. Please prepare for combat. General Thokmar snorted, arrogant for such a small force. We thought so too, Crixtal said. Admiral Nixoth ordered all ships to battle stations. Standard coalition doctrine called for an overwhelming show of force. Destroy a few enemy ships quickly to encourage surrender. The tactical display began moving, showing the coalition fleet advancing in perfect formation. The human ships appeared to scatter randomly, breaking their tight defensive group. At first, everything went according to plan, Crixtal explained. Our ships moved into attack formation. Our weapons powered up. Our shields activated. The humans appeared to panic and tried to flee in different directions. Dr. Carter's hologram leaned forward. But that was not what was actually happening? Crixtal shook his head. No. The humans were executing a battle plan they had developed specifically for fighting coalition forces. Every move they made was calculated to exploit our standard tactics. The display showed the first exchange of weapons fire. Coalition energy beams reached out toward the fleeing human ships, but most of the shots missed their targets. Our gunners reported strange targeting difficulties, Crixtal said. Their sensors kept losing lock on the human ships. The humans seemed to vanish and reappear randomly on our screens. Admiral Morrison nodded. Electronic countermeasures. We had analyzed your targeting systems during the diplomatic visits and developed specific jamming frequencies. But that was only the beginning, Crixtal continued, his voice growing more strained. When we tried to coordinate our attack, something impossible happened. What? Vexara asked. Admiral Nixoth's orders never reached the fleet. Our communication systems stopped working. Ships began firing at random targets instead of following the battle plan. Some of our vessels even started attacking each other by mistake. The tactical display showed the coalition formation falling apart as ships moved in confused patterns, their neat battle lines dissolving into chaos. General Thokmar looked puzzled. Communication failure? How is that possible? The humans had hacked our entire communication network, Crixtal explained. They were listening to every order, every report, every tactical discussion. But more than that, they were changing our messages. Dr. Carter's expression remained neutral. Psychological warfare. We needed to break your coordination before engaging your superior numbers. Admiral Davis was speaking directly to Admiral Nixoth on the command frequency, Crixtal said. But the rest of the fleet was hearing completely different orders. Ships were told to attack targets that did not exist. Captains received retreat orders that were never given. Battle groups were sent to defend empty space. The display showed human ships beginning their counterattack. Instead of random fleeing, their movements now revealed a carefully planned strategy. That was when we realized we had been tricked, Crixtal continued. The human ships were not running away. They had been moving into position around our fleet. They had surrounded us. High Counselor Vexara studied the tactical situation. Surrounded? How could 12 ships surround 200? They used our own formation against us, Crixtal explained. Coalition doctrine calls for ships to maintain close formation for mutual support. This creates a concentrated target that is easy to surround if the enemy has superior speed and maneuverability. Admiral Morrison's hologram gestured to the display. We had spent months analyzing your tactical preferences. We knew exactly how you would arrange your ships and how you would respond to different threats. The battle simulation continued, showing human vessels striking at the coalition fleet with precise, coordinated attacks. But something was wrong with the way they fought. Their weapons were not the primitive systems we had seen during first contact, Crixtal said, his voice filled with bitter realization. They had energy beams that cut through our shields like they were not there. They had missiles that could think and adapt to our defensive measures. Reverse-engineered coalition technology, Dr. Carter explained, improved with human innovations. General Thokmar looked angry. You stole our weapons designs? We studied the samples you willingly provided, Admiral Morrison corrected. Then we made them better. Crixtal continued his account, his forearms gesturing wildly as the memories flooded back. But the worst part was not their weapons or their tactics. It was the way they fought. There was no honor in it, no rules, no mercy. The tactical display showed coalition ships beginning to explode under the human assault. But the human attack pattern was strange. They seemed to be targeting specific systems, rather than trying to destroy ships. Outright, Admiral Davis contacted each of our ship commanders personally, Crixtal said. He knew all our names. He knew which ships we commanded. He spoke to us in our own languages. What did he say? Vexara asked quietly. Crixtal closed his eyes. He offered us a choice. Surrender and live, or continue fighting and watch our crews die slowly. He promised that if we surrendered, he would treat us according to our own codes of honor. And if you refused, he would demonstrate why resistance was pointless, Crixtal replied. He kept his promise. The display showed one coalition ship being systematically disabled. First its weapons, then its shields, then its engines, then life support systems in non-essential areas. Captain Vorthak of the battlecruiser, Righteous Fury, refused to surrender. Crixtal said. Admiral Davis spent 20 minutes destroying his ship piece by piece while broadcasting the crew's screams on all frequencies. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of Crixtal's labored breathing. 20 minutes, he repeated. 20 minutes of watching brave warriors die in agony while their captain begged for mercy. And Admiral Davis just kept talking. He explained exactly what he was doing and why. He wanted the rest of us to understand what would happen if we continued to resist. Dr. Carter's hologram spoke softly. Psychological pressure designed to encourage surrender and minimize casualties. Minimize casualties? Crixtal laughed his broken laugh. You wanted to break our will to fight. You wanted to make us so terrified that we would never oppose humans again. Admiral Morrison nodded. That was the goal. We needed to establish that fighting humans was not just difficult, it was pointless. Crixtal looked around at the council members. That was when I understood. The humans were not just trying to win a battle. They were trying to win a war that had not even been declared yet. They were showing the entire galaxy what happens to anyone who threatens them. The tactical display showed more coalition ships beginning to surrender as the human demonstration continued. But the battle was far from over. Crixtal stood up abruptly, his forearms shaking uncontrollably. The memories of what happened next were the worst part of his testimony. Dr. Carter's hologram watched him carefully as he began to pace around the small chamber. After Captain Vorthak's ship was destroyed, Crixtal said, his voice cracking, something changed in the human attack pattern. They became more systematic, more calculating. It was like watching surgeons perform an operation. The tactical display shifted to show the middle phase of the battle. Coalition ships were scattered across the battlefield, some surrendering, others still trying to fight, many simply trying to escape. Admiral Davis divided his 12 ships into 3 groups, Crixtal continued. Each group had a specific task. The first group disabled our remaining ships. The second group herded the ones trying to escape back into the battle zone. The third group began what they called educational demonstrations. High Counselor Vexara looked confused. Educational demonstrations? They wanted to teach the rest of the galaxy a lesson. Admiral Morrison's hologram explained calmly. Every ship that continued to resist became an example for the others to observe. Crixtal stopped pacing and stared at the human admiral. Example? You call torture an example? We call it effective psychological warfare, Dr. Carter replied. The goal was to minimize total casualties by encouraging rapid surrender. The alien commander's voice rose to almost a shout. Minimize casualties. You broadcast the death screams of coalition crews across every communication frequency in the system. You made sure every planet within 50 light-years could hear our people dying. The tactical display showed the human ship UHS Retribution, moving toward a damaged coalition cruiser. The cruiser's captain, Commander Zekara, had refused Admiral Davis's surrender demand. Commander Beth Turner of the Retribution contacted Commander Zekara personally, Crixtal said, his voice dropping to a whisper. She spoke in perfect Valdorian, Zekara's native language. She knew his family name. She knew the names of his children back on Valdor Prime. General Thokmar leaned forward. How could she know such personal information? They had studied all of us, Crixtal replied. Every senior officer in the Coalition fleet. Our backgrounds, our families, our psychological profiles. They knew exactly how to break each of us mentally. The display showed the human ship beginning its attack on Commander Zekara's vessel, but instead of trying to destroy it quickly, they targeted very specific systems. Commander Turner explained what she was going to do before she did it. Crixtal continued. She told Zekara that she would disable his weapons first, then his shields, then his engines. She gave him the chance to surrender after each system was destroyed. Dr. Carter's hologram tilted her head. Standard escalation protocol designed to provide multiple opportunities for surrender. Zekara was brave, Crixtal said, ignoring the human psychologist. He refused each time. So Turner continued her demonstration. After she destroyed his engines, she began targeting life support systems in non-essential areas of the ship. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of the tactical display updating. She started with the cargo bays, Crixtal whispered, then the secondary crew quarters, then the recreational areas. Each time she warned Zekara's crew that the next target would have people in it unless he surrendered. Admiral Morrison's expression remained neutral. Commander Turner was following established protocols for siege warfare. Siege warfare? Crixtal's voice cracked. This was a space battle, not a siege. But you treated it like you were conquering a city, like you had all the time in the galaxy to slowly strangle us. The alien commander sat down heavily, his head in his hands. The worst part was that Turner kept talking the entire time. She was not angry. She was not excited. She spoke like she was reading technical specifications from a manual. What did she say? Vexara asked quietly. Crixtal raised his head, tears flowing from his dark eyes. She explained exactly why each target was chosen. She described how the explosions would affect the people inside. She told Zekara how many of his crew members had already died and how many would die next. The tactical display showed other human ships conducting similar operations throughout the battlefield. Each disabled coalition vessel became the focus of a careful, methodical destruction designed to maximize psychological impact. But the most horrible thing, Crixtal continued, was that the humans were talking to each other while they did this. I could hear them on the communication channels they had hacked. They were making jokes. General Thokmar looked skeptical. Jokes during battle? Lieutenant Jake Morrison on the UHS Defiance asked Commander Turner if she wanted to make it interesting by betting on how long Zekara would hold out. Crixtal said bitterly. Captain Lucy Davis of the UHS Vengeance complained that her target ship was surrendering too quickly, and she would not get to test her new weapon systems. Dr. Carter leaned forward. Combat stress often manifests as inappropriate humor. It is a coping mechanism. Coping mechanism? Crixtal laughed his broken laugh. They were not coping with stress. They were enjoying themselves. This was entertainment for them. Admiral Morrison's hologram spoke calmly. Our crews were following orders and maintaining morale during a difficult operation. Maintaining morale? Crixtal stood up again, his forearms spread wide. Your people were laughing while they murdered helpless prisoners. They were taking bets on how long it would take to break our commander's will to fight. The tactical display showed the final phase of the systematic destruction. Coalition ships throughout the battlefield were shutting down their weapons and broadcasting surrender signals. Commander Turner finally convinced Zekara to surrender. Crixtal continued, his voice hollow with remembered horror. but only after she had killed 60% of his crew. And when he finally gave up, she thanked him politely for his cooperation and moved on to the next target. High Counselor Vexara made notes with trembling hands. How many ships were destroyed completely? 47, Krixtal replied immediately. But that number does not tell the real story. The humans disabled 130 ships without destroying them. They left the crews alive inside damaged vessels that could not fight, could not flee, and could barely maintain life support. Why? General Thokmar asked. Because dead enemies cannot spread fear, Admiral Morrison answered. But traumatized survivors can tell others what happens when you fight humans. Krixtal nodded slowly. Exactly. They wanted witnesses. They wanted survivors who would go back to their home worlds and describe what they had seen. They wanted the entire galaxy to know what humans are capable of. The alien commander walked back to the tactical display and touched a control. The image changed to show the aftermath of the battle. Disabled coalition ships drifted helplessly while human vessels moved between them like predators checking their prey. After the battle ended, Krixtal said, Admiral Davis contacted every disabled ship personally. He offered medical assistance and repairs to anyone who needed help. He spoke kindly to the survivors and expressed regret for the necessity of the violence. Dr. Carter nodded. Post-combat psychological operations designed to reinforce the lesson while demonstrating human mercy. Mercy? Krixtal turned to stare at her hologram. You call it mercy to help the people you just finished torturing? We call it completing the psychological impact, Admiral Morrison replied. Fear combined with unexpected kindness creates a powerful emotional response that ensures the lesson is remembered. Krixtal sat down one final time, his shoulders slumped in defeat. It worked. Every survivor of that battle will never forget what humans can do. But more than that, they will never forget how easily you did it. How calmly you destroyed us while treating the entire battle like a training exercise. The chamber fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. The humans had not just won a military victory. They had conducted a masterclass in psychological warfare that would be remembered for generations. The debriefing chamber was completely silent for several minutes after Krixtal finished describing the battle. The alien commander sat slumped in his chair, emotionally drained from reliving the worst experience of his life. The council members stared at their notes, trying to process what they had heard. Finally, High Counselor Vexara broke the silence. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Commander Krixtal, in your professional opinion as a military officer with 40 years of experience, what makes humans so dangerous? Krixtal raised his head and looked at each council member in turn. When he spoke, his voice was steady for the first time during the entire testimony. You are asking the wrong question, he said. The question is not what makes them dangerous. The question is why we never saw the danger until it was too late. General Thokmar shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Explain. Every species in this galaxy fights for something, Krixtal began. The Valdorians fight for honor. The Zephyrians fight for territory. The Andromedans fight for resources. The warrior clans fight for glory. We all have reasons that make sense to us. He stood up slowly, his forearms hanging at his sides. But humans fight for only one reason. They fight to eliminate anything that threatens their survival as a species. Dr. Carter's hologram leaned forward. That seems like a natural instinct for any intelligent species. No, Krixtal shook his head. Most species fight to win individual battles or wars. Humans fight to make sure they never have to fight the same enemy twice. They do not just want victory. They want permanent security. Admiral Morrison nodded approvingly. Commander Krixtal understands our strategic thinking better than most of our own allies. I have spent 3 years studying your species, Krixtal replied bitterly. 3 years trying to understand what we faced at Kepler 442b, and the more I learned, the more terrified I became. High Counselor Vexara made more notes. What did you discover during your research? Krixtal walked to the wall display and activated a new presentation. Images of Earth appeared showing cities, armies, and historical battles. I studied human history, he said. Every war you have ever fought. Every conflict your species has experienced. And I found a pattern that no other species in the galaxy follows. The display showed scenes of human warfare throughout their history. Ancient battles with swords and spears, medieval sieges, modern wars with tanks and aircraft, and finally space battles with energy weapons. Humans do not fight to conquer territory or capture resources, Krixtal explained. You fight to completely destroy the ability of your enemies to threaten you again. You call it total war. General Thokmar studied the historical images. Many species have fought wars of conquest. Not like this, Krixtal insisted. When the Valdorians conquered the Zephyr Nebula, they defeated our military and occupied our worlds. But they left our culture intact. They allowed us to maintain our identity as long as we accepted their rule. He touched a control, and the display showed scenes from World War II on Earth. When humans fought their Second World War, they did not just defeat their enemies' armies. They completely destroyed their enemies' ability to make war. They occupied their countries, rewrote their laws, rebuilt their governments, and reprogrammed their cultures. They made sure those enemies could never threaten human civilization again. Dr. Carter's hologram nodded. Comprehensive victory designed to create lasting peace. Exactly, Krixtal said. And that is what happened at Kepler 442b. You were not fighting a battle against the Coalition Enforcement Fleet. You were demonstrating to the entire galaxy that any species that treats humans as subordinates will be completely destroyed. The display changed to show star charts of the local galactic region. Hundreds of systems controlled by various coalition species were marked in different colors. The Battle of Kepler 442b was never about the mining operation. Krixtal continued. It was about establishing human dominance over this entire sector of the galaxy. You used our enforcement fleet as a demonstration for every other species that might consider challenging you. Admiral Morrison's expression remained calm. We needed to establish deterrent effect against future aggression. Deterrent? Krixtal laughed his bitter laugh one final time. You did not create a deterrent. You created absolute terror. Do you know what has happened in the 3 years since that battle? High Counselor Vexara shook her head. 17 coalition member species have withdrawn from collective defense agreements, Krixtal said. 24 worlds have requested independent peace treaties with Earth. The Valdorian Empire has begun redesigning their entire military doctrine around the assumption that humans are the primary threat in the galaxy. General Thokmar looked alarmed. The coalition is dissolving? The coalition is finished, Krixtal stated flatly. Not because humans destroyed our ships, but because you proved that our entire understanding of warfare was obsolete. We thought we were advanced. We thought we understood military strategy, but we were fighting with rules that humans do not follow. The alien commander returned to his seat and looked directly at Admiral Morrison's hologram. Tell them, he said quietly. Tell them the real truth about human military capability. Tell them what the 12 ships at Kepler 442b actually represented. Admiral Morrison was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke in the same calm, measured tone he had used throughout the entire testimony. The 12 ships that fought at Kepler 442b represented approximately 0.03 of 1% of Earth's current military capacity. The chamber erupted in shocked voices from the council members. Vexara dropped her datapad. General Thokmar stood up so quickly his chair fell over. That is impossible, Thokmar shouted. 12 ships could not be such a small fraction of any species' fleet. Earth currently maintains over 40,000 combat-ready vessels, Admiral Morrison continued calmly. The ships you encountered were from a single patrol squadron. They were not even our most advanced or heavily armed units. Krixtal nodded slowly. Now you understand. The Coalition sent 200 of our best ships against what humans considered a minor police detachment, and we were utterly destroyed. Dr. Carter's hologram addressed the Council directly. During the 3 years since first contact, Earth has been preparing for large-scale galactic conflict. We have analyzed the military capabilities of every major species and developed specific countermeasures for each one. But why? Vexara asked desperately. Why would you build such a massive military force? We offered you protection. We wanted to be allies. Because humans do not accept protection from others, Admiral Morrison replied. We provide our own security, and after studying galactic history, we determined that every major species would eventually try to control or eliminate us. Krixtal stood up one last time and faced the council members. Do you understand now? He asked. The Coalition invited Earth to join as a protected species, but humans saw this as an attempt to make them dependent and weak. So they decided to become the protectors instead of the protected. He gestured to the holographic humans. Admiral Morrison and Dr. Carter are not here to help with my testimony. They are here to deliver a message to the Council. They want you to know that humans are no longer asking to join galactic civilization. They are informing you that they now control it. Admiral Morrison nodded. Commander Crixtell is correct. Earth is prepared to offer the same protection to coalition worlds that you once offered to us. We hope you will accept this arrangement peacefully. The implications hit the Council members like physical blows. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted completely, and they had never even realized it was happening. Crixtell sat down and looked at his hands. 3 years ago, we thought we were welcoming primitive newcomers into our advanced civilization. Instead, we had invited apex predators into our territory and taught them everything they needed to know to replace us. He looked up at the Council members one final time. The terrifying truth about human warfare is not their weapons or their tactics. It is that they think 50 years ahead while the rest of us think 50 days ahead. They are not fighting today's battles. They are fighting the wars that will happen in the next century. The chamber fell silent as everyone contemplated the new reality of galactic politics. Humanity had not just arrived on the galactic stage. They had quietly taken control of it while everyone else was still trying to figure out what they wanted.